Okay, I think we are all set. So, welcome everybody. This is our Meet Our Community session focusing on our kindergarten program. And we're really happy to have you here. Really, our intention is just to be in conversation with you. So we're not, providing any presentations or anything, but we really just want this opportunity to field your questions as you're trying to deepen your understanding of Get in School and in particular our kindergarten program. So again, really happy you're here. I will start this by allowing our panel to make their introductions. And panel, if you wouldn't mind just as you're introducing yourself, of course, talk about your role and maybe how long you've been at Get in School. And then I'll open with sort of an opening question for them to respond to, and then really we'll go right to a Q&A. Families, you are welcome to unmute to ask your question, or I will monitor the chat. You can put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get all of your questions answered in the time that we have with you today. So, Hiromi, can we start with you? Could you just introduce yourself?
All right. Hi, I'm Hiromi. This is my 5th year at Giddens. I'm one of the kindergarten teachers. I've taught preschool and pre-K at Giddens, and then also in my 20 years, that is basically my age group, preschool, pre-K, and K.
Hello, I'm Portia. I have been at Giddens for, I think it's my 18th year this year. It's my, I taught on Guam before that for a few years, ranging from 1st grade to 3rd grade. So also in the early childhood, early elementary field. Your turn, Caro.
Caro, you're muted.
Hi, I'm Caro. This is my 1st year at Giddens. I am the kinder resident. So I work with both Hiromi and Portia. And I have been working with elementary for a little bit. I'm from Texas and my degree is in art education. So I mainly range from K to 12, but here in Seattle, I've been with elementary.
Thanks, team. Okay, so here's the question I'm just gonna pose to you, and feel free to, for all 3 of you to kind of weigh in. And then, like I said, we'll just jump into a Q&A with our guests. What experiences and learning opportunities do you think are important for children to have in kindergarten?
Ask Miranda those things, baby.
For children to have in kindergarten, and how does Giddens approach these specifically?
I can start. I think in kindergarten, we prepare them on different ways as far as we prepare them to be learners. And so in kindergarten, we start forming, like habits of learners and what learners do, building up their stamina to participate in circle time discussions, learning how to cut, hold pencils, express their stories and pictures, and later on in words, see themselves as readers and writers. And so, preparing them, setting that good foundation to be good learners and students as they move on to the upper grades. And then as far as the social emotional skills, we prepare them to be good friends and problem solvers. It's okay, we teach them how to speak their mind and to also articulate their feelings and problem solves and be community members. And yeah, those are just a few things Hiromi can add.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that came to my mind was the social aspect with COVID. A lot of our students missed out on precious preschool pre-K experiences. So in kindergarten, especially, I think moving forward, it's just a sense of belonging. Like, what does it mean to be part of a larger community? Because it was very limited during COVID times. So like this year, for a lot of our students, I think it's the first time that they are in a group that's bigger than 3 or 5. So how do you work out problems like Portia was saying? And just kind of understand, like, hey, there is a community beyond me and my family. So we do a lot of that in kindergarten. And as a learner, it's really about developing their interest in learning. So it is also about building their self-confidence. Portia talked about like the reading, like them understanding who they are as a writer, reader, and also like a mathematician. But also, sorry, I had a thought and I forgot. Oh my gosh, it will come back to me. But I think what I wanted to say was to develop their interest in learning. And oh my gosh, sorry, I'm so sorry, I just forgot. It'll come back to me. But until then, Ms. Cotto, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, something that I see a lot, especially since the beginning of the school year to right now in January, is like at recess, they're really learning to play together and be community members and constantly check in. Like if something happens and like a friend is injured, they will run to a teacher and be like, oh my gosh, my friend needs help. We need it. Like they will stop everything they're doing to make sure that their other friend is okay. So I think I've seen a lot of them just trying to learn to be good helpers and just good friends and build a community. And it might not even be the kids that are in their class, because for K, we have recess with 1, 2 as well in the morning. So they're just learning to be really good people. And it's only January. So I think that's awesome.
Okay, the thought came back. I wanted to talk about the yet. So we talk about this a lot in kindergarten, because a lot of them come in and they're like, I don't know how to read, I don't know how to write, I don't know how to write numbers. A lot of the I don't know. So we really emphasize that word of yet, that we are all here to learn. And at the same time, really having them experience what it's like to make mistakes, that it's okay to make mistakes, and that mistakes are good things, because you can learn from them. That's what I wanted to say.
Can I add something?
Please.
Also in the social justice aspect and anti-bias learning, in kindergarten, preschool, pre-K to kindergarten, the focus is a lot on themselves and their identity, not just as learners, but as human beings. And in kindergarten, that circle, expands to their community and the diversity that is happening around them, and they're able to recognize that diversity. So in kindergarten, we do a lot of looking at our identities and our uniqueness, but also looking at others and other identities and their uniqueness, or similarities and differences, and they're able to recognize the different types of people around them. So I feel like that happens a lot in kindergarten.
That's really
Thank-
helpful to hear. Sorry, Ken, I did not mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say families, lead with your questions. Thanks.
Thank you. My question is to the panel. So in a lot of ways, I think kindergarten is kind of this transitional period. And I think both Hiromi and Portia alluded to this, that, there is this time where the kids kind of learn how to develop stamina and learn about their identity and how to discover who they are, what their role is in a bigger community. Can you give a couple of examples, or one example where you can think of a tangible way how this is introduced in a classroom setting?
I can start with that. In reading, for example, in the beginning of the year, we were building our stamina as readers, as independent readers. And so we talk with the kids about what that looks like when you are able to read independently. And so we talk about sitting down on one spot and having the book in front of you, reading the entire reading time and things like that. So we talk about what is what does a good reader or independent reader looks like. And then we start off at 2 minutes and we have a graph and we mark down the time that we started. And we talk about how when we're building our stamina, whether it's our stamina to read or a stamina to run, like in sports, you don't expect, a coach doesn't expect you to run like a mile on the first day. You sort of like build it up. And so the kids are able to see how they're building their stamina by doing it little at a time, you know. And so yeah, then they understand, and then we note it, or we graph it and we display it on the, you know, in the classroom, and they see the growth that they're making. And with what Hiromi mentioned earlier, the power of yet, we talk about how, well, we can't do it at 20 minutes yet, but we will, you know, and here we are recording our progress. And so they actually, again, they recognize the growth and are able to celebrate when they see that growth chart go from 2 minutes to 15 minutes. So that's just one example of how we build their stamina at their own pace and their own, almost like their own control, and they're invested in it because they know that they're working hard towards a goal.
Yeah, and then for math, it's a very smooth transition where in the very beginning of the school year in September, there's a lot of just playing with the manipulatives. So we have cubes, we have like shapes, links, just a lot of manipulatives that we use throughout the school year. So in the beginning, we don't expect them to do math with it, but you know, they build, they play, they just kind of do their own thing, kind of check things out. And then we slowly transition to using those manipulatives to actually do mathematical work, whether that's creating patterns or doing addition. And then slowly we're also transitioning to asking mathematical questions to one another. So a lot of the math work is done in pairs. So then they would ask questions, mathematical questions that, you know, most of the time that I would ask them. But it's transitioning where the kids will ask each other, like, how many more cubes do you need to get to 20? And then, you know, the other partner will calculate. And if it's not correct, to be able to kindly show how to get to that answer. So then that's the other step of like being able to explain how to do something, which is like a master of your understanding of your concept and skills. So that's how the transition kind of happens in math. Daria, does that answer your question?
That's really helpful, yeah. And as a follow-up to that, just curious, what are some of the techniques or methods that you have balancing, you know, at that age where, you know, they're right at the cusp of like learning how to sit down and really pay attention to something or dedicate some time to grapple with a problem, and still a very kind of physical and the need to, you know, be on the move, because I understand this is not a trivial challenge for the teachers and the kids alike, where, you know, you have this kind of inherent struggle. Can I sit down and really think things through or read for 2 minutes versus just be on the move at all times? How do you guys usually find yourself dealing with that?
We have a lot of tools in our tool belt to kind of, you know, because we get a lot of, we do have again, like a diverse and a variety and a wide range group of kids, and not everyone's at the same, you know, physical and developmental level. And so there are tools that we have in the classroom to meet and accommodate, you know, everyone, or at least almost everyone's needs. And we do work, you know, we do work closely with families to make sure that we are able to meet those needs if there are some movement needs or wiggly needs. We have seating arrangements, tripod chairs, those big bubble chair, or the what do you call those, almost like a donut chair. In my class, kids recognizes their sometimes their inability or challenges with sitting still, and so they are allowed, I guess is the word, to sit at a spot that would work for them. So we have a couple of kids who sit on a rocking chair to get that sense of moving around. Some kids get to chew gum because they know gum sometimes helps with focus and grounding. And so, yeah, I guess the answer is that we work closely with the families and figure out what a kiddo needs, and we try as best to provide that support. I hope that answers your question or some of it.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful.
I also want to add that within the classroom, what we do is really, especially in the beginning of the school year when children aren't used to sitting for long periods of time, there's a lot of transition from working as a large group at the rug, going back to your seat to do some independent work, whether that's reading for 2 minutes, coming back to the rug again, and then breaking up into small groups. And if we're back to the large group, instead of sitting in your spots, doing like a movement activity with the whole class. And there's also 3 recesses that we go to during the school day. So that really helps to get out of the classroom and get some fresh air. And then we also have specialists as well. So, different classroom, different environment, different learning objectives. So I guess those aren't really techniques, but that's kind of like the flow of a kindergarten day that helps them kind of stay focused and interested.
That's great. So then the specialists, which we had a session yesterday with your panel, and it was fantastic to hear, work with kindergarten teachers as well, not just the 1st through 5th grade. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have the specialists work from preschool to grade 5. So all of the specialists, they teach all grade levels.
Hiromi, the question was about the learning services team. So that would include like Katie and Lindsay. How does that team, I think the question was more about how that team interacts with kindergarten.
Every day. So yeah, Katie has been coming in and assessing her students for math and identifying students who can use a little bit more support and working with them one-on-one or in small groups. The same with Colleen, who is our reading specialist or literacy specialist. She's been doing the same. And our school counselor, Lindsay, she's been awesome as a whole school. She's had small groups focusing on specific like challenges students are meeting, whether that's anxiety or focus or staying organized. And she also comes in and does a social emotional lesson every week to all of our classes.
Thanks so much. And I will stop monopolizing this time and let other parents ask questions. Thank you so much.
You're totally fine. There is a question in the chat that I'm going to read for the panel. What are some of the biggest or most common difficulties you face leading your classroom, and how are you working to overcome them?
Start, Hiromi? I can start. I mean, really, in the many years I've been in this age group, the most challenging I feel I face is the lack of partnership with parents. I feel like that's very crucial in education, in kindergarten, being able to work closely with the family and having that partnership to ensure that we are supporting, their kindergartner. So that, I don't want to say that doesn't happen, because, it does happen from time to time. And, but it's not a common thing, but it is the most or the biggest, for me, the biggest difficulty, and how are you working to overcome them? You just keep trying. You keep trying to communicate, be transparent, and work with the families, again, to ensure that we are providing the best support for our kiddos, for the kiddos.
I echo that. A lot of our parents at Giddens are very, very willing to work with us. Occasionally we run into, I think, families who we can't see eye to eye. So like Portia was saying, a lot of open, direct communication, observations that is not just from me, but from like the learning specialist. So data as well, and coming together and working with administrators to find out ways to support the student. Because at the end of the day, what everyone wants is for the child to be happy and to be supported as a learner and as a person. And it's trying to figure out how we can do that. So I would say that is an ongoing challenge, but not all the time.
I can answer that question. What is your approach for an early avid reader in kindergarten? It's just to read together at bedtime, provide books that you can read together, just right books, meaning books that they can independently read, whether it's books, and I know it says early avid reader, but that could mean that they like reading the pictures and telling the story from a book. So providing a collection of books that they can go to each time. Pointing out environmental print. And again, our go-to, or my go-to, is that bedtime read together every night, talk about the book, pause every few pages and talk about the book and make predictions and inference and talk about the characters, and build on that comprehension skills. Because again, in kindergarten, it's like there's a lot of focus on decoding and fluency. And so we're adding comprehension to the piece, and you can help with that with your avid reader, kindergartner reader.
What I was referring to is if we have a reader who's already reading and comprehending at that level.
Yeah, no, my second step with that is to give them a journal and start writing things. So then for them is to then start spelling. Kiddos who read at an early age in kindergarten mostly read by print or through print. And we have to help them build their phonemic awareness and decoding. So getting them started with a journal and start writing, labeling pictures and writing words and writing full sentences would be a suggestion that I have.
Great.
I guess we can also talk about guided reading that we have in our class, how we group students based on their reading interest and reading level. And occasionally we have a few kindergartners who are reading at a pretty high level. So, they're grouped together. And like Portia was saying, we work on all those skills, not just being able to read the text, but like, the comprehension and all that. And one thing that I noticed with early readers, avid readers, is sometimes they aren't looking at the words carefully enough. They think it's a specific word because it makes sense in their head. So slowing down, so basically reading out loud and slowing down and really looking at each word and making sure that they're reading the word, not just picturing or imagining what the sentence should be.
Can I add that I'm fascinated by reading in kindergarten, so I get so excited about this. But it also, again, with like young, early kindergartner readers who are showing signs that they're reading above grade level, their writing skills sometimes doesn't match up with their reading skills. And so And that's fine, but then as they get older, if that gap continues to be wide, then it becomes more challenging for them because they're reading words at this level and they're trying to sound words out and use best guess spelling, but then they can read it and say, hey, that's not how you spell it. Then they come across a challenge. And so having them understand about phonics and phonemic awareness and how spelling means you're listening to a sound and recording what you hear, and hopefully would close that gap between their reading skills and their writing skills. And so, yeah, and we do that as well in class, especially for our higher level readers, where we focus on phonics and encoding and decoding.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
There's a question in the chat. What communications channels are there between teacher and parent? How frequently do teachers interact with the average parent? How frequently do you interact with a parent who wants or needs to work more closely with you on their child?
I think the common communication channel for all teachers here at Giddens is email and the weekly newsletter that we send out, usually like on Fridays. And because of COVID restriction relaxation, parents are coming into the building for pickup. So those who are able to come between 3:30 and 3:45, and that's our dismissal time this year. It could change next year. We can check in at that time, or if it's more of a deeper conversation, set aside a time, whether that's a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. And how frequent do you interact with the parent who wants to work more closely with you? I think we just keep the communication going, and if there's a concern, we really want you to reach out and communicate with us, like what it is that's on your mind, and go from there.
Yeah, we
Do you
send
want to?
out,
Oh, sorry, Porson.
Go ahead. Oh,
I was going to say,
wanted go ahead. Sorry, you go.
Do you want to highlight the parent teacher conference and the progress reports inside of that? Is that what you're going to do, Porson?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. We do progress reports twice a year, one in the winter and one in I guess mid-spring. And then we also have family conferences that we've been doing through Zoom. We're finding that that's more effective for families and make it more flexible for families to be able to attend, but we do parent-teacher conferences twice a year, one in the fall and one in early spring. And if whether there are concerns or highlights that we're noticing in the beginning of the year, for sure we will communicate that with you even before you receive that first communication, which is the parent-teacher conference or progress report. If teachers are feeling like it's information that you need to know. So we are flexible, and again, that open communication is something that I think our teachers value, and so we will contact you if we need information and we have concerns and things like that. So
we'll pop in with a question. Thank you for your time. Kind of bouncing off that earlier question that just occurred about interaction with the teachers, that was kind of specific to progress. What's kind of the preferred level of engagement in the classroom as far as like volunteerism or ways to support classroom operations? Like if we're wanting to engage more in a blended family type of way to support the classroom.
To be quite honest, I think we're getting back to that because we haven't had that in a few years. So I can kind of tell you what we used to do before COVID. Actually, before COVID, I was teaching pre-K, so it's a different age group. But I would have parent volunteers come in to either read or do an activity, like share a hobby of theirs. So one time I had a dad who was really into woodwork, so he came in and did a little bit of woodwork with us, and each kid got to like make a little wood thingy. So we had parents come in and do that. Or we would have parents come in and help us put things up on the bulletin board. That's really, really helpful. We've also been on field trips where we definitely needed parent volunteers. And we also have school events where parents are not just parents, any caregiver are more than welcome to attend. Like this afternoon, we just had all school sing. And that's where everyone can come and attend and enjoy the songs that we sing. And we also have a Generations Day. When was that? November? October? Okay.
It's in November because it's usually coincide with the earthquake shakeout, the earthquake day where
Yeah.
you,
So
so
we've
it's in
got
November,
that.
yeah.
So it's very, very interactive. There's lots of ways for parents to get involved, and I think we are slowly getting back to it.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the roles of your class reps?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a way that families can be engaged. It wouldn't be every family necessarily, but
Yeah, I can talk about that a bit. Our class rep, so we have a class rep that's kind of assigned per class or grade level, depending on the year, but there's several, I feel like they have several hats. One is to help form a community within the classroom. So setting up, and this is super important, especially during COVID, when it was COVID. And again, as Hiromi said, it's starting to build back up, but like setting up a meetup, at a park on the weekend, or setting up like a pumpkin carving party or something, just to get those families together. We have such a strong and tight community, and I feel like COVID sort of affected that a little bit. And so, hoping that class reps will continue to do that. And then also helping with our gala auction project, and getting, for fundraising purposes, we make classroom projects that is auctioned off at the gala. And so sometimes class reps help with that. And then in the past, I did a lot of things that Hiromi, did with her class reps. I also have some class reps who have helped prep math worksheets or reading worksheets and stapled booklets and type stuff up for us, things like that. So little things and big things for sure.
awesome. There's another question in the chat. What are the key differences between pre-K and kindergarten? Not so much differences in curriculum, but more day-to-day practical differences.
I'm thinking about the pre-K and K difference. I would say the practical day-to-day differences. There is a lot more play and choice time in pre-K, I would say, than in kindergarten. We still value play in kindergarten, but it looks different. Like kindergarten, there's play when we're learning math. There's play when we're doing literacy. And of course there's free choice, but in pre-K, there's a lot more unstructured playtime. And they also have rest time, which is 45 minutes in the afternoon that, kindergarten does not have. And also just developmentally, they have a lot more snack time, which kindergarten does not have. So I would point out those differences. But recesses, I feel like it's the same amount of time that we have, but just inside the classroom. The big difference that I felt from going to pre-K to K was the amount of unstructured playtime. It was just a lot more in pre-K than in kindergarten.
So I remember from the
tours, talking a lot about some of the thematic units that you were doing and hosting. So I was just wondering if maybe there were some examples of some of the things that our kindergartners are doing right now, and how that ties into some of the units that you guys are teaching. Maybe more tangible examples.
And are you thinking, Erin, are you thinking specifically related to our Spark program?
Yeah,
Or
maybe a Spark program, or maybe just like, what are some of the activities that they're doing? I know we talked about like in, reading, or you're talking about grouping and things like that, but what is an example of like maybe a lesson plan or something that you guys are bringing some of those themes to life with?
got it.
I can share some examples. We do have our Spark topics every year, and we sometimes change things up every year, but now that we don't loop kids in K. We used to when we were K1, so we changed the Spark topic, or what you would call interdisciplinary topics, every couple of years. But in kindergarten, every year we do a lot of community building and friendship lessons in the beginning of the year. So a lot of our reading or writing and maybe even some math stuff revolves around friendship and identity. We did an identity map, which we do through name celebrations. And I don't know if you saw during one of the tours, if you've gone by, we have like our name clouds, where we interviewed each other. And from there, the kids build on their environmental print, and we sort of write those words and sound those words out, and they learn each other's names, and they learn to write each other's names. They learn about each other's age and what their favorite numbers are. It's like a favorite question some years. And then they get to do portraits of their friends. And so there's a lot of, academics built in with this one project that happens in the fall. And so that's just one, that's one example. And I think we do integrate our Spark topics throughout the day, or at least throughout the week in class. So right now, our topic is families, right, Romeo? I make sure I'm right. Families, right? Our topic are families. And like a few weeks back, I was reading a book about families, and there's this one book about mother, baby carrying with parents. And so there's this book about, babies being carried through a sack, through, like those carriers, and kids just get to see the different ways babies are carried around the world. So that's just one of our read aloud topics that we had. So we're able to integrate all those throughout the day.
Yeah, that's great. And I do remember the clouds and the names and the series of questions they must have had to write their answers, because I remember there's like colors and things like that on there. So yeah, thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
There's a question in the chat. Can you share a few examples of how the specialist teacher activities are integrated within your classroom program? It's like we're thinking like music, performance, PE, etc., Spanish.
If the question is about whether we sit and plan with the specialist teachers, it doesn't happen often. We do sit down with our Spark teacher, Sarah, to plan the whole unit, but not with the PE, music, or Spanish teachers. They are aware of the units that we're doing, and I know that our music teacher, PE teacher, Spanish teacher, they do their best to integrate whatever Spark unit we're studying. So if it's families, I know Karina, our Spanish teacher, has been working on how to say family members in Spanish. And I know Ori integrates a lot of what we are learning in class in the music that she chooses. So I think that's really all I can say.
I can also add a little bit about the specialist teachers. So I worked with Sarah to teach an art lesson, and the kids actually just finished dioramas about their families. So I went in for a whole week co-teaching with Sarah, the Spark teacher, and the kids were able to do kind of like portraits that were pop-ups. So they picked 5 either family members, caregivers. A lot of people picked their pets that were super important to their family. And so they did oil pastels. And then the next time we saw them, they also did watercolor and oil pastel resist of places that they like to go with their families, whether that be hiking or to the park, or they're all sit on the couch. And so the kids really got into just stuff that they do with their families, which connects to what Portia and Hiromi are doing through like literacy when we're reading books and talking about families, and then they got to paint them. And so those are actually displayed kind of in the cove in between the classes now, because we just finished them this week, I believe.
Thank you. That's helpful. Can you remind me how often those specialists are coming into the classroom?
Spanish is so our schedule's a bit different this year, but roughly Spanish is twice a week at 45 minutes or 40 minutes at a time. Spark, which is our interdisciplinary studies, is also twice a week, 40-ish minutes at a time. PE and music are sort of comboed in for, is it 45 minutes? So they get about 22 minutes each, 3 times a week. And then we also have, not that they are specialists, but we also have our counselor, Mrs. Burge, who comes in once a week to teach or read a book about social emotional learning. And then we also have a tech time, you know, with Corey, our technology specialist, once a week talking to kids about digital citizenship, and also introducing apps that we use to supplement our, you know, reading and writing. We have some math apps, or a math app and a reading app, or a phonics app that we use to supplement some reading activities. So we he's able to teach them that once a week.
Great. Thank you, Portia.
There's a question here. Do kindergartners have opportunities to buddy with higher grade students? Does somebody want to talk about our buddy program?
Sure. So I think this year kindergarten is paired with 3-4, right? You too, right, Portia? And so yeah, every single grade buddies up with another grade band, and we meet every 3 weeks, I believe, for 30 to 45 minutes. And during that time, they do like a craft or some kind of like activity together. And then depending on the buddies, some of them go out to recess so they can have some outdoor time together. Some of them want to read, so they read together, and others, you know, they might want to go and build with blocks or Legos. But it's just a time for the little buddy and the big buddy to bond, to communicate. And we really emphasize that. The teacher of the older students really emphasize, like, this is not a time for you to hang out with your peers. It's a time to really connect and get to know your buddy. And our kindergartners absolutely adore and love our big buddies. Just the way their face light up when they see them in the hallway. And also for the older buddies to see them and to be admired like that, you can just tell they're like, oh, so yeah, it's a great program. I love having buddies.
Yeah, they're adorable together. And, you know, the older buddies, I mean, we have a conversation with them about, this is a role that you have that, you know, you should take seriously. There's these little kids, you know, young ones looking up to you. So it's a good opportunity for them to show some leadership skills, some nurturing skills, you know, and some role model, like being role models. When they're walking down the stairs and they're jumping and running down the stairs, as soon as they see their buddies, they sort of stop, because we tell them, hey, you know, we're looking up to you and they're gonna copy what you're doing. So show them how it's done. And they really, you know, stop and notice what they're doing and make sure that they're showing their buddies some good examples. It's really sweet. And they form that strong bond throughout the year. They get to know their buddies really well. They look forward to like working together, you know. And it's nice that we're next to each other this year. Our buddies are right next door. So whenever we walk by, because we're in the end of the hallway, so whenever we walk by and they see their buddies like sitting down with computers, we're like, whoa, look at the hard work your buddies are doing. And they like peek in the classroom and they're quiet, you know. So it's really sweet to watch and see. It's really cool. It's, you know, nice to see. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both.
There was a question on the chat about family topic, and I know Hiromi said yes, but I want to double yes on that. We do, you know, also as part of our anti-bias teaching, we talk about the differences with everybody, whether it's family structure, skin color, you know, backgrounds and things. We talk with the kiddos about all the different types of families, and it does show up during name celebrations, and it's good conversation, you know, with the kids to have, and they're able to, and they feel safe actually sharing, you know, their diverse background with each other. So yeah, it does happen. Double yes.
Are there any other questions? Let's see. Can I just share this? Just a note before we close, how empowering it was to see an educator panel of BIPOC females. Thanks for all you do. Oh, that's very nice. It's very nice. Are there other questions? Oh, Hiromi, you want to add?
I just wanted to thank Cody and Angelica for noticing that and saying something. We're very proud too.
Oh, thank you. Our little one is here with us, and it's like exciting for her too to see others that look like her in this type of setting. So thank you so much.
Are there any last questions for our teachers? We've appreciated the time you've taken out of your day to again continue to deepen your understanding of this community, and of course appreciative of our really amazing kindergarten teaching team, Hiromi, Portia, Caro, always just doing. I think of kindergarten as a really magical time, doing magical work with kids. They're just such a lovely developmental time. So really appreciate you all being here. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we'll sign off. We are continuing our Meet Our Community series through the month. I'll send out a broad reminder to all of our families about the next upcoming panel conversations, just so you have that on your radar, but you can also reference our entire Meet Our Community series on our website. So thanks again for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.